Well, few cars define a segment or create a segment the way the EcoSport has created and defined the subcompact SUV segment. After 3 years of its launch, Ford now wants to take the game further from its rivals by launching this updated version. So what is this car all about? Well, let's have a look. Well, the changes on the outside are very subtle and include slightly modified fog lamp housing as well as a new LED strip below the headlamps. And keen Ford EcoSport observers will realize that this new shade of bronze really does look different and very classy. Well, but the biggest changes of this car are now under the hood. Ford has given it an updated engine. Now this diesel engine develops 100 bhp instead of 90 bhp from the older unit. So let's flip this review around and start with the driving first. Well, so here we are driving the new updated Ford EcoSport. Now the biggest change, of course, remember, is the fact that this car comes with a 100 bhp engine. In terms of performance, you will not notice that difference immediately. But what you will notice is that the engine has now become even more responsive than before, and it starts responding from roughly about 1500-1600 RPM, which is very good for a diesel motor. The strengths of this engine remain its pulling power, its pulling ability is very good. Also the fact that it really does love to be revved all the way to its red line and delivers a lot of torque while doing that adds to its desirability. And what really adds to the sense of driver involvement in this car is this crisp gearbox, and it's one of the crisper gearboxes in the SUV segment at the moment, the compact SUV segment for that matter. And it feels very sporty to use and also has very narrow throws, which makes it a joy in any condition to operate. Well, Ford hasn't changed much on the suspension of the EcoSport, and that's a good thing because this car still managed to soak in those bumps very well. And because the suspension is nice and tight, it does not roll around when you push it into corners, which is also a very good thing and adds to the sense of sportiness to this car. Yes, some of the sharper crevices do manage to filter into the cabin, but that's quite okay because at higher speeds, this car really does remain very stable and very reassuring. Well, the EcoSport at the end of the day is, remember, a compact SUV and not really a keen sedan or a keen hatchback, and in that sense you get decent feedback from the steering wheel. Well, what are the other positives of this car? Well, this car has a very good and reassuring ride at higher speeds and feels very stable and has a very flat ride when you are, of course, pushing it on the highway. Very little filters into the cabin. The braking is very good and the grip from these tires is very good, and what that means is that if you enjoy pushing your car into corners on those hilly sections, then this car will relatively reward you. Well, the other plus point of this engine is the fact that it's a very refined engine, and there's a little bit of clatter when you start it from cold, but after that, once things do warm up in the engine bay, there's very little vibration which enters the cabin, and rear seat occupants, in fact, will not be able to tell if it's a petrol or a diesel powering this car when you are on the highway, and that goes to show you the amount of improvements that Ford have managed to put into this diesel motor. Well, so here I'm in the back seat of the EcoSport, and it is a very roomy as well as spacious place to be in. Headroom is very generous, and the knee room, as you can see, is very good as well. And because this is a very high set car, you can get in and out of this cabin without any fuss at all. So one of the better cars if you have older people at home, and also a good car for space as well as comfort. Well, also the EcoSport is decent in terms of width at the back, which means that you can have 3 passengers here together. There is a bit of a hump in the floor panel, but the footwells around it are pretty wide to accommodate someone's feet who is sitting here. So in that sense, it is a good car for 3 occupants at the back sitting together for those long highway trips. Well, so here I'm in the front seat of the Ford EcoSport, and in terms of comfort, these seats are pretty good. Now you of course get this dark grey as well as a little bit of silver on the dashboard, which makes it look very sporty, but the plethora of buttons over here on the center console can confuse first time users, and it's not a very easy menu to operate, so you will have to take some time to get used to it. That said, you get a lot of features on this car. You get voice navigated commands as well for the stereo as well as some other infotainment systems, and that adds to the convenience factor in this car. And if you want to know more about the features of this car, you can also head to our website by clicking on this link below and figure them out for yourself. Well, overall build quality is decent, but nothing really to write home about, and some of the plastics do feel a little flimsy, That said, what Ford have done is a very good thing now. They have placed the indicator stalks according to the Indian driving position, and now they're on the right, which is the position which most Indians use it, and have been changed from the left that they were in the older version of the car. In terms of practicality, it's a good place to be in. You get big bottle holders in the door bins. You also get this huge armrest over here, and there are a couple of places to keep your big bottles on the side over here. Also, one over here where you can, of course, keep your bottle. And the glove box is decent in its size as well. There's also a tray ahead of the gear lever to place your cell phone and wallet. With the subtle updates on the outside as well as the updated diesel engine, the Ford EcoSport is more desirable than ever before. With its long list of talents and abilities, this really is the quintessential sub-compact SUV.